All right, you guys have been waiting for this for a long time. FDIC International is proud to welcome Michael Ciampo as the 2025 keynote speaker. A 39-year fire service veteran, Ciampo retired as an FDNY lieutenant in Tower Ladder 45 after starting as a fourth-generation volunteer firefighter. His career spans the DCFD, the FDNY, where he dedicated his life to protecting both cities. A nationally recognized instructor, Champ has trained departments nationwide in truck company operations and led FDIC's Truck Essentials HOT program. A prolific author and editor, he writes the On Fire column for fire engineering, contributes to fire apparatus and emergency equipment, and has co-authored firefighter training textbooks. His expertise is featured in training minutes, videos, and instructional materials. A passionate advocate for firefighter safety, Ciampo champions cancer prevention, PPE use, and early detection. FDIC 2025 is honored to welcome this leader, educator, and fire service advocate, my friend and co-worker, Mike Ciampo.
Hey, Cupcake, put that thing down, right? Yo, Cupcake, you hear me? All right, I didn't even speak yet, and they're starting to clap, so appreciate everybody being out here this morning. So, a little bit about myself. I was born in 1961 into a family that had deep roots in volunteering. My great-grandfather was a charter member of a fire department that was created in 1907, probably Dave Rhodes' age, due to the death of a young child in a town with no fire protection. My grandfather told us how they kept a sponge in their pockets so they could wet it and breathe at fires. Hearing the loud tones of the plectron, for us older folks, going off and watching Dad run out the door was my first taste of firefighting. Soon I followed and became a volunteer. Volunteerism in the American Fire Service. What's happening to our beloved calling? Too many times over the radio, we're hearing multiple towns being dispatched to provide mutual aid, and we're not able to staff an ambulance or a fire apparatus. Is it time we look in the mirror and understand that due to the lack of staffing, things must change? Maybe implementing a system and putting people in our stations so we can cut down on response time and render aid as soon as possible is the answer. We may have to renovate firehouses and institute some type of change, a live-in program so apparatus can be staffed and get out the door faster to someone's emergency. I don't know about you, but the last time I checked, our mission was to save lives. Are we playing games with the lives we swore to protect? It may take time and money, right? Headaches and hurdles, but if we're not forward-thinking and instituting change for the better, what kind of providers are we? When we're delayed in showing up or show up with only 2 firefighters on an apparatus? Volunteer a career when we show up on scene in multi-million-dollar fire-equipped chariots with only 2 firefighters? Good luck in providing the best possible service you can to those who expect us to be their saviors. We're everybody's hero when we perform life-saving or heroic deeds, but what would have gone smoother if we had the proper staffing in place? Sometimes I wonder if it's better to shut down a station with 2 firefighters in it and move them to another firehouse so we can go out the door with 4 members who would work in unison together. When we hear about the war on fire, many of you will call the riots and civil unrest in major cities across this land in the 60s, or the turbulent war years of the fire department in New York suffered in the 1970s. Riding in the back of Rescue Company 2 in Brooklyn as an observer during these years is where I witnessed firsthand the destruction fire could bring to property and human life, while viewing firefighters jumping into action in occupied and vacant dwellings. Their gear was nowhere as good as today's personal protective equipment, and that can be seen by the reduction of burn injuries to our members today. Sure, wearing three-quarter boots and long coats was a thrill for many of us, as it gave you better mobility climbing a ladder when your boots were pulled down. But a bad thing about those delinquent protection devices was when you witnessed burn injuries your roommates suffered and endured, and you didn't want to see. And then applying Silverdine to his most private parts. What's the matter, right? Calling for the return of three-quarter boots would be stepping back in time. You know, many of us often wish we could relive the days of the past, but each and every one of you is fighting your own war years, even if you don't realize it. Wildfires, train derailments, hazardous material incidents, building collapse, structure fires, and one of my favorites, how I got truck sit-ups and a tough stomach, was the abundance of medical runs, are all part of your lifestyle. You know, in 1985, I almost said 1885, oh geez, that was Tom Brennan's years, okay? In 1985, when I was appointed to the District of Columbia, the city was constantly burning and in turmoil. The PCP and crack epidemic suddenly had us running more medical calls than fires. Naked people running and burning up in the streets, while murders seemed to happen all times of the day, because $5 crack was an easy way to make money. We're in another type of war period. We just didn't realize it because we were just doing our jobs. Then, traveling north to the FDNY and working in the South Bronx with blocks of vacant structures still gave me the taste of old school firefighting. As time moved on, the vacants became occupied, and thermal pane windows in these rehabs began to change fire behavior and our tactics. Fire dynamics are important to understand, but be aware of the structures you fight your fires in. Not ventilating a bulkhead for fear of feeding the fire or pulling it in your direction can allow the building to build up with explosive carbon monoxide and missing victims who try to escape via this exit. In addition, companies performing secondary searches have found victims in areas far from the fire due to the buildup of these deadly gases. Ventilate with knowledge and coordination, and know your buildings. We've all heard it before, they are our enemy. Understanding fire travel can be easy in your bread and butter occupancies. When buildings have been renovated, expect problems. New layouts, void spaces, legacy construction mixed in with lightweight materials. Don't forget about using the bent tip or cockloft nozzle. They can help you extinguish fires in these void spaces. It's also important to document this information and get it in the computer. It can provide firefighters with valuable pre-incident information for years to come when they respond to these buildings. The information you provide them may save their lives. As the years pass, we responded to the 1993 bombing and then the WTC and World Trade Center attack in 2001, while others responded to the Pentagon in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. These events were certainly not the war ground any of us thought we'd operate and see at. Rebuilding after the tragic collapse on 9/11 took some time. We had to mentor new firefighters and officers while redeveloping the department and our traditions and culture, but we did it. This is who we are, dedicated firefighters with the will to pass it on in remembrance and in honor of those 343 members who lost their lives and those we're still losing from the horrible after effects of operating at these sites. As time moved on, we would encounter another battleground, the COVID epidemic. We were suddenly thrown in to the middle of holding lives in our own hands again. CPR, right, to so many and often losing multiple victims per day. The look on the young firefighters' faces after losing 7 lives in one senior housing building in a day said it all. After the deaths, we gathered in the kitchen and we discussed the events of the day, letting members know help was available to those in need. Although none of these younger firefighters experienced 9/11, we let them know we were in uncharted waters, facing new and unique challenges, and that as a team, if we stuck together and supported one another, we'd survive. And now we're facing a new dilemma, the explosive lithium-ion battery fires. See, we're still battling and trying to conquer the war that never ends. We're fighters, we're winners, and we're providers. We're there to protect and save lives. But the streets are where you're going to encounter the things they didn't teach you in the fire academy. We're America's frontline, battle-ready responders and still engaging in war on every call. Our training must provide us and prepare us in ways we didn't think we'd have to be trained. I never imagined that we'd be trained in radiation detection, mass decon, or wearing bulletproof vests and armor helmets to help remove injured victims at mass casualty shooting incidents. Who knows what we'll face in the years to come, but we'll all have to be prepared and trained for it because we're the front lines of America's response to tragic accidents. Sitting at my desk monthly still has me questioning how the hell I got to follow Tom Brennan and that Mrs. Smith's neighbor, Alan Brunacini, on the back page. Maybe it was my upbringing in the fire service, from reading Tom's random thought columns to working with great firefighters and officers who invoke knowledge and tactics on every call. Their calm and professional demeanor or the way they handle the nozzle or tools is what I absorbed while watching and learning from them. My first column was called "Who Had the Nozzle?" That's the first question you hear after a tough fire. It was writing dedicated to the entire engine company because they all had to perform their duties meticulously for the fire to be extinguished. It wasn't about one single firefighter. It was about the team of firefighters. After the column, you'll love this one, I get an email. "Yo, kid, you're not Tom Brennan, and you'll never be." My first inclination was to send a long reply, but I wasn't going to go and try and debate him. Instead, I replied, "Thank you for your email. You're right, I'm not Tom or Alan, I'm Mike, and I hope to bring training, passion, and knowledge to the fire service too." So what have I tried to portray on the back page? Let's look at a few things. As my old dear friend and Proby school partner Andy Frederick said in his FDI speech, "The garbage man doesn't get excited when he turns the corner and sees mounds of trash. It's his job." Exactly. To this day, we should know our job and not lose our cool seeing fires and scenes we never expect to encounter. On each run, maintain a calm and cool demeanor and no screaming. Being well educated in the fire tactics will enable you to perform the duties of being a good fire officer and firefighter. For all of us, over the years, the fire service is going to receive many adrenaline shots, and most are just what we need. Maybe you're part of Ray's culture of extinguishment and keep fire in your life. Like Ray, I love to go to fires. Or maybe you're part of the mega group. Oh, this one gets me. Making engines great again. I didn't know the open and close concept changed, all right? Or the search culture for them. For them. Yes, victims are our #1 priority when we arrive at a structure fire, vacant or occupied. But the officer must make those decisions based on a personal size-up of the conditions encountered when arriving on the scene. Then it will be decided as what tactics will and must be deployed. As the officer of an interior crew, it's just as important to get your crew out of the structure safely and back home to their families as it is the victims. Sure, we're going to push the envelope and do some dangerous and heroic stuff, but just screaming out specific mantras without knowledge of the fire and building doesn't make a rescue of a civilian life. Perform to the specifics of the situation you encounter. Put the I in VES. When I hear departments frowning on the tactic of vent, enter, and search, because we're not the big city, it makes me weak in the knees. Riding a short-staffed truck and just following the hose line in is like a vulture just waiting for scraps. But entering a room off a ladder, fire escape, or porch and isolating yourself, oh, I did put the I in there. Oh, look at me, right? Right? Allows you to find victims in the bedrooms. The Firefighter Rescue Survey has provided us with information on a high percentage of victims removed from these rooms. Not performing VES operation, again, reminds me of one of Andy's sayings that I'm going to adjust. If you perform an aggressive and thorough search, let's start over. If you don't perform an aggressive and thorough search, when conditions warrant, it screams utter incompetence. All right? Instructors are certified and certificate-yielding individuals who can make change happen. I challenge each of you in this room to provide better training and methods to help keep our members safer while operating. Of course, on-the-job training and experiences will occur, but not exposing firefighters to real-life scenarios at the fire academy is a crime. Do we have an instructor sitting on a second-floor window with a small mannequin waiting to be rescued? Often, our teaching skills and presentation methods show the mere basics of firefighting in a controlled atmosphere and don't portray real life. Curriculum must change from the start and includes areas of study we didn't think we have to step into. Many of our newer firefighters may not even be schooled on using the basic of tools, a screwdriver and a hammer. So we should create a classroom setting with props to allow these members to learn about tools. On-the-job learning should be for the unusual circumstances, not for the runs we'll encounter day in and day out. Change can only happen when we fight for it, develop it, and provide it. Let's send them out on the streets with more than the basics. And if you're just following the local standards, then you're not doing your best. You're performing a disservice to those they'll be working with and in charge of saving their lives. As my little buddy Sammy Hiddle said, where are you, Sammy? Stand up. Oh, you already are. All right. We create a place where it's okay to be a firefighter, when we should be creating a place where it's expected. Right? Is that what? Thank you, Sammy. Lack of sleep because you ran 4 overdoses after midnight. You're working mandatory overtime shift after a long tour, okay? Or experience a line of duty death can make your life miserable. Leaving the firehouse, you may not know it, but your demeanor and attitude will affect those around you. Try to find a method to decompress, either by going on a walk to clear your mind, working out in the gym, listening to music, or finding something that works for you. It may be the best thing you can do for yourself. The highs and lows of this job can destroy your insides. That's why it's important to know you have plenty of support from the professionals trained in these matters. Too often we've seen brother and sister firefighters turn to the bottle of booze or pills and destroy themselves. Worse yet is having one of your friends die by suicide. You notice I said some? That's because it's happening way too much. Spend some time in this profession and you'll be exposed to it. I know we're all shocked when we hear of it, especially when it hits close to home, but we have to have access for firefighters to seek help whenever they need it. PTSD is going to happen to all of us. Maybe you don't think you have it, but I'm telling you, deep down inside, some shape or form, you do. Whenever I was driving down the Harlem River Drive in New York City to go to chemo and radiation, my eyes always seemed to glance at the light poles on the concrete divider. One's missing. All that remains are 4-threaded rods sticking up in a bunch of crumbled wires. I can still hear the dispatcher's voice when we asked for additional information, and the response was, "Keep going, you won't miss it." That spot marks the point of impact where a motorcyclist was sheared in half, body parts strewn all across the highway. I'm by no way an expert or a counselor, but I can tell you this. Checking on your members in the days following with a simple text, phone call, or a suggestion to meet up with them can pay huge dividends. Another thing to do is text them privately with the counseling service information, allows them to seek help without anybody else knowing it. So what have I really accomplished on the street and on the back page? In my eyes, not much, as I perceive myself as just one of the brothers. Nobody special, maybe lucky to work in some of the busiest firehouses with top-notch firefighters and officers, and teach with some of the best instructors out there. But what would that do or mean to anybody but me? Throughout my career, I tried my best to pass on what I've experienced. Sure, I put a little spin on things in my own personal style and try to share my tips learned on the streets, but I'd like to share one more. Nobody thinks one day you'll be putting hose lines, and years later, a nurse will be starting an IV line with chemotherapy. Unfortunately, it's going to happen to some of you in this room to be stricken with cancer. To me, any cancer a firefighter comes down with should be an occupational illness. We're exposed to gases, smoke, and chemicals that the normal human being will never be exposed to. Take it from me. Try to be a safer firefighter by wearing your mask for longer durations, especially when faced with food on the stove, during overhaul, and when working in smoky atmospheres. Air is free, and those tanks on our back can be our lifeline. Avoid having to suffer from the ugly after effects of operations and treatments. We must do better to conquer and fight the battle against occupational cancer. Rolling the dice in today's fire environment isn't the game to play. Just look at that sticker they put inside our helmet that states, firefighting is an ultra-hazardous, unavoidable, dangerous activity. Well, as we say in the FDNY, it's time for me to take up. So I'll leave you with this. Have passion and a purpose to fulfill this dangerous job and absorb all the knowledge you can. Step up and instill pride and knowledge in those around you and pass this great profession on. Strive to teach more than the basics to the warriors we put on the rigs to respond to the unknowns. The next tragedy is just around the corner, and we better be prepared for it. Thanks for listening to my random thoughts on fire, and stay safe. That's good.